Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life, a podcast where you'll gain insights from relationship experts and entrepreneurial couples who have moved through conflict and into a better life. Crack the clarity code and create deeper connections beyond the messiness of relationships. Here's your host, Judy Herman.
Before we get started, here's 2 things you'll want to check out. First, if you want to know your next steps to improve your relationship, go to my website, judycounselor.com, and take the relationship stress quiz. Second, if you're looking to hire me as a speaker to help your organization thrive with communication and connection, you can go to judyspeaker.com. I'd love to support you. For now, I'm so glad you're here because Doctors Chad and Shelly Prevost show us how the Enneagram can increase marital satisfaction. If you've not heard of how this ancient wisdom increases self-awareness and deep connection, you'll find out. Not only that, you'll want to tune in to a tender moment in this episode. This is inspiration to the core, and this is actually what I call a divine invitation. Let's listen in. Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life. My name is Judy Herman, and I am so very honored to have some remarkable guests to talk about the Enneagram today and how it affects our relationships. So we have Dr. Shelly Prevost and Dr. Chad Prevost as our guests today, a married couple, and Shelly is the co-founder of the Big Self School, a personal growth school that supports the mental and emotional well-being of leaders, coaching, and consulting. They have a remarkable podcast and also events. She's also a licensed therapist and an educational psychologist, leadership coach, and Enneagram practitioner. We're going to tell you what the Enneagram is for those of you that don't know what it is. And then Dr. Chad, you are a 4, but I do know that Shelly is a 2 on the Enneagram. Right. There's actually 9 choices of what you can be on your number, but I'm going to let you 2 talk about that.
Yes.
And so Dr. Chad, you're a writer, publisher, author, coach, and certified Enneagram practitioner with advanced degrees in creative writing, literature, and theology. You participated, Chad, in some writing and literary arts communities in New York, Austin, Atlanta, and Chattanooga, and now you spread your passion about the Enneagram in the Southeast. And that's where I am, that's where you all are. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, this is a treat. You know, Judy, you and I have known each other how long?
I was figuring this out, Shelly. It was because for me, it's a second career. My first career was raising 4 kids in a troubled marriage, and my second career becoming a licensed therapist. And so I think we were licensed about the same time in 2006. Yep. And we initially met, and I'm trying to figure out where am I going to land in private practice.
Me too.
Yeah. And listening to your journey too, especially recently, I listened this morning to your TED Talk in Barcelona about what is it, girls lead, or what was
Lead Like a Girl.
Yeah, Lead Like a Girl. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But I so resonated because after 10 years, after a decade of being in private practice, it just feels a little bit too confined. You want to get yourself out there. And I resonate with you on so many levels. And you too, again, I want folks to know up front, you all are like movers and shakers in a very huge way. So I am wanting today, for me, myself, personally, and for our guests, to really soak up your wisdom, your journey as an entrepreneurial couple, raising kids and being supportive of each other. I know you've got a journey to share, but I'm just going to soak it up. But can you ground us, first of all, for those that know nothing about the Enneagram? And what is that? What is it? And why do I even need to know about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for having us. Do you want to take that?
It's hard to know where to begin. It's such a big system, but I will say briefly, even yesterday on a walk with Shelly, I was just saying, man, I love this Enneagram system so much. I wish I had known about it literally all my life, because it makes me go back a little bit and think, oh, how that would have helped to be able to know the types I was working with, probably know the types, and to know myself well enough to know how I was engaging with others at different times. It has helped. It helps you in so many different ways. You know, the Enneagram is very versatile. It's we would call it perennial wisdom. That's where it comes from, these ancient sources, and you can apply it to psychology. You can apply it to the arts. You can apply it to business, relationships of all kinds. So it's really, I guess, to cut to the chase right now, it has really improved like the way that we can communicate with each other. It gives us shortcuts of self-understanding and other understanding, as well as our kids. So I'm just going to lead off on those thoughts. What are you going to say, Shell?
So what I'll add, at its core, you know, what most people know of the Enneagram, it's a typology. It's a personality system for typing 9 basic personality structures. And it's been around for, some people speculate, thousands of years. It's originally based on even some esoteric kind of religious traditions, not just Christianity, but there's just a real rich history helping philosophers and thinkers really understand universal truths. And so at its core, there's a mathematical foundation, which we will say for a different time, because
that might be a little bit more in the weeds.
Yeah, but I think it's a framework for understanding laws of the universe. And so what happened in the 1960s, some psychiatrists and psychologists got a hold of it and started to really see like, oh, there's a map here for understanding personality development. And so in the 60s and the 70s, it was in 50s too, it really began to take off in growth in psychology communities around the world. It came into the US in the 70s. And it's, been going gangbusters ever since. And so there's 9 basic personality structures. There's actually a lot more than that. But for when we do the work with people, we really do start with kind of the 9 basic ways to talk about personality.
And the Enneagram, we'll just say briefly, as we know it, the Enneagram of personality was brought to us by, in the 1950s, Oscar Ichazo, from South America, and Claudio Naranjo was one of the people that had studied with him a little bit and brought it to Berkeley, California in the late 60s, early 70s, where he began to teach it. And it's from those sources that we really understand it, that Claudio Naranjo was really influential in bringing the psychology to the spirituality when we think about growth and self-awareness. And that, in the early 70s was pretty innovative.
I should say, and as you described that, Chad, thinking, okay, Shelley, you are from that psychological framework, and then Chad more theological. So that really does seem like a great match made in heaven for the two of you to be studying this together at this season of your life. And yes, my first exposure was in 2000, actually. And I did read parts of Richard Rohr's book. And then I've gone through certain workshops and books. There's so many books that have been written on it, and so many different ways of thinking through, but the way that you just described it, I think, is the perennial wisdom and the typology as far as your personality, rather than like a Myers-Briggs type indicator, where there's only 16 slots of which you could be, which, our human psyches and who we are is much more than 16, right? And you said more than 9. So correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley and Chad, but I'm thinking whatever your number is, once you target that, that's basically the lens with which you see and interpret the world and relationships in yourself. Would that be a real simplified way of seeing it?
Yeah, I think so. Some people literally call it a lens. It depends on, I guess, different schools have different terminologies. I would say this too. The one thing I'd like to just say about the Enneagram that is distinctive from all other typologies, including the Myers-Briggs, is that it is so incisive about looking at the motivations behind behaviors. That's one thing that we really appreciate, why you can't automatically assume someone else's type just based on their behavior, because we don't always know the underlying motivations behind it. But we also, and without going too deep into instincts and subtypes, there are 3 instincts. And so, and if you have 3 to the 9, then there are kind of 27 types.
And I've got to let you two know, I'm very much not near as knowledgeable as either one of you on this, but I do know that there's the gut, the heart, and the head, right? And is that what you're making reference to? Yeah. And so, but without getting into too much detail about the Enneagram itself, but I really want to know your journey. And I think folks want to know, because here you are, a married couple. How long have y'all been married?
You want to take that one?
I asked a personal question.
I know.
We're coming up on 23 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. Well, notice that pregnant pause.
You get to this point, you kind of do have to count. I was like, okay, how old is our eldest? And then,
Oh, that's so funny. Okay. So you've been married 23 years, and I really want to get grounded in your story too. So you've got little ones or big ones or grown up
middle ones, I guess. They're all teenagers.
Middle ones. Okay. You are really in that. And I'm sure, I would think, I don't know, I don't want to assume anything. You probably know what the Enneagram, I got so many questions. I got so many question marks in my head here. So first of all right, Chad, you said earlier, I wish I'd have known about the Enneagram before. That was actually one of my questions here that I kind of had prepared for you. What, if you had known it before, let's just say 10 years ago, how would things be different?
Ooh, I have no idea.
That's kind of fun to think about, though.
Well,
let me say this. So we've been together 25 years. So right when we got together, I actually learned my first exposure to the Enneagram was about the time I met Chad. And I remember, and I know will remember so many kind of long, kind of hard conversations, because I was getting my master's in clinical psychology at the time at Wheaton College when we were dating. And I just remember, being in that program, and was like, okay, you have to grow. Like, are you going to grow? Yeah. I can't marry you unless I know you're going to grow. And he's like, yes, I'll grow. What does that mean?
How can I don't know in what other ways to answer that question.
And it was so important to me to have a partner that was pursuing personal and spiritual growth the way that I needed to. And so I think my question was really wanting the validation, the confirmation. So, at the time I didn't really, the Enneagram didn't hook me like it has in the last 5 years. But it's become a shortcut. So growth, and it's kind of very vague kind of idea that I meant it 25 years ago, I think it's become very concrete for us with the Enneagram, that had I known as the type 2, these are the patterns that I will habitually struggle with for probably the rest of my life. And they're going to affect you. They're going to affect how I parent, how I show up, the things I'm not conscious of. If I had a lens, to go back to your word, Judy, if I had a lens, if I had language, I think the growth, it would have been just more concrete, not so vague and nebulous. Like, what am I doing? And these are concepts, and I've been in and out of therapy for at least 25 years, maybe almost 30. And these ideas that I've learned with the Enneagram evaded me. Like they were just so hard to really understand. And this has given me a language and for us to be able to talk about it.
So I'll hop in real quick. Around the time, so I had just finished seminary when you were beginning your counseling program, and I had concluded seminary by feeling basically called to not go into ministry. Like I knew that wasn't going to be for me, and I was casting about for what was I really going to be? What was my next authentic step to be? But also, I think, like maybe a lot of guys, maybe a lot of people, I resisted the therapy thing that Shelley was really wanting me to do, and wasn't really focused on. I thought that I could accumulate the self-awareness and knowledge through learning more and more and more. And that's a mistake. It's limited. So there were plenty of blind spots, lots of work to do. But yes, I think if we had both known that I'm a 4 and she's a 2, and that we're in the heart triad and feelers, that would have helped. If I had known my subtype of a 4, the one-on-one subtype, which is kind of intense, and expresses emotions readily, that would have helped so much.
Well, I do know, and I'm sure you're familiar with this author, Susan Stabile. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yes.
The path between us. And I think she said that she needed to study the Enneagram. Is it Enneagram or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah,
I think it sounds just fine the way you're saying it.
Okay. Anyway, it saved her marriage. Okay. So there's a lot of folks that, they get into this. And as far as the practical application of it, it really can possibly give you that understanding and that lens and that insight and that wisdom about how to respond to another. Okay, I've got to back up just a little bit with you too. Also, okay, so Shelley, you're a 2, which I'm just going to throw out there for folks to know that that's a helper. That's basically a helper at your core, right? And then the 4 is the more, I guess, the word romantic. Is that what I mean? Just a real quick definition.
Yeah, they call it the individualist sometimes, the romantic, and then what's the
artist. There's a lot of names for it.
Yeah.
The
but
creative.
you being a writer, that just like, I mean, just from what I know of the 2 of you, that sounds to be fit, to fit. I've got to tell you, Shelley, okay, I went to your website before all of this, and I thought, okay, I need to make sure I'm all like, I know what my number is. But so like you, okay, I've been exposed to this. Am I a 7? Am I a 3? Am I a 2? I've just been all over the numbers trying to figure out, okay, I thought I need to know. And then on your website or somewhere I read about, don't take the test online. That'll mess you up. So
it's because we want to know, right? We want to know.
Yeah, and how that can mistype you, whatever. So
it just it's a data point, and that's what I tell people. It's one data point of many, of a dozen, that helps you figure out your type, and it can help eliminate. So when you take a test, and there's a couple, I give a test that is through my program that we're getting certified in. And it's pretty good. It's probably the most accurate, but it's one data point. And so you really do have to be on a journey of self-discovery. And it's best done if you're reading, you're talking with people, you maybe have a coach or a guide who's just a little bit further on their Enneagram journey, can kind of help point things out along the way.
We can talk to Tess briefly if you'd like to. We have some information on it, but that might not be the direction.
Yeah, I actually do. I do want to get into your relationship. I'm so into relationship. This podcast is Better Relationships, Better Life. I know you 2 have been on this journey, and I'm very curious because I don't think there are a lot of folks with the dynamics that two of you have. Okay, after 23 years of marriage, you're raising your kids, and I really am so curious about your journey because okay, you met when you were like in college, in grad school. Where were you at? And
I was 20, almost 23.
Yeah, early mid 20s.
Yeah, getting into graduate school, and I was headed up to Chicago. He just finished seminary. We met at a youth camp So a summer camp where we were both on staff and we were told there was a no dating policy, which clearly we did not abide by.
We didn't keep it a very good secret either.
Yeah.
But that, you know what, that makes it exciting, doesn't it, when you're breaking the rules? Right?
I just thought he was really cute. I was like, he's interesting. I'm going to figure him out. And at the time, it's funny because as a helper two, it was more early on. And I think when I was less conscious of these patterns for myself, I found him to be a project. I found him to be like,
I could,
ooh, I want to like get in there and understand and like help him, like, like dig into all the mental and emotional, because there was a lot as a 4, there's a lot going on emotionally. There's a lot of complexity. They're also, because they're so close to that 5, they're thinking and analytical. And I just wanted to like understand.
But I could also be intense and, have, I don't know, express myself socially in ways that had some rough edges. And that would really bother Shelley. So, it's been a long 25 years of working on those issues, but let's see. I also do remember a couple of years or, well into her program, as I was thinking about my next steps, we were like, well, you're going to be a counselor and, and I'll be a teacher. And we were dreaming pre-marriage of, hey, let's do a retreat. We could, a dream would be like, we could have a retreat center and, we could have some kind of program together for helping others in this missional way. And, so I guess, a long circle of all of this is that I did, get a PhD in creative writing in order to get a job as a professor. And I did do that for about a decade while Shelley was counseling. And then, we've sidetracked into other professions and experiences vocationally, where you were, CEO of a tech company and all kinds of interesting things. I've worked in startups as well. And almost like full circle, the past couple of years, we've been able to realize this dream of founding Big Self School together. I think a big inspiration we could talk about is the School of Life. And so ever since the pandemic started, we've been working together. I don't know. Do you want to add to it? Like the experience?
That's been a huge shift. I do have some other question marks in my head there, and feel free to fill in. So you took, yes, we all go through these different roles in life, don't we? Like boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, newly married, and then kids, right? And now, but it sounds to me like even in your mid-20s, if that's when you had met, that there's this, that both of you seem to be grounded, or at least curious, or at least ready to grow. Even not the psychological path, right? But grow on your own. But that's to me, I really want to hold that. I think that's pretty profound. For some folks, it may not, maybe for you two, but there's so many folks that don't know who they are, or what they want, even, and who does really know that even before the age of 25. Like, could we even possibly, Shelley, this might be a question for you, even appreciate or be drawn to something like the Enneagram in our mid-20s, because the brain's not even totally online until then. So anyway, that was kind of an insight that I wanted to bring out.
Yeah. And I think, so a couple of things that makes me think of, I've always been naturally kind of a questioner. And I think that's one thing, even as a kid. I remember, sometimes it got me in trouble too, like asking kind of they weren't theological questions, but they were like real genuine questions I had at 7, 8 years old about some of the things I was being taught at church and I didn't understand. And I would like push back a little bit, and out of curiosity. So I think that some of us have this intrinsic quest or seeking, like you're saying, a seeker quality in us, that at any point, I think the Enneagram can aid in that. So what I see happening though with the Enneagram and specifically is people We love talking about ourselves. We love looking at ourselves, learning about ourselves, even in this kind of more shallow and kind of narcissistic way. And I think, in my opinion, I think that's where a lot of people use the Enneagram, is to know, like, at this kind of top level about who I am and my personality. I think if we leave it there, in my opinion, I think that can be a little dangerous, and no matter what age you are, because the whole point of the Enneagram is to identify is the very first step. And you can't leave it there, because if you identify and you say, well, I'm a 2 and my work ends there, then I'm still in my box. I'm still in my limiting beliefs. I'm still in my fixations. I'm still in my unconscious emotional patterns. Now I have it. Not only am I still in it, I have almost this justification. Well, it's just me being a 2. I'm a 2. Deal with it. That's who I am. And so, and I think that's where I was certainly in my 20s. It was important for me to understand myself, but it wasn't until really, truly the last 5 years of, what the Enneagram world calls a shock point, which is something happens in your life to break you open. And the poet Mark Nepo says, we're either broken open or we willfully shed. And that's, the ego, the fixations, these patterns. And I don't think I could have willfully shed anything. I think it took life serving me up a big kind of smack across the face for me to really go, okay, like, it's time to grow myself up. It's time to really, really take an honest look at these patterns that haven't been serving me for 25 years, or really my whole life. But it's only now that I'm seeing kind of the repercussions of that. So that's a little bit of how I would talk about the power of the Enneagram, what it's intended to. And then no matter what age you are, most of us kind of stop at that. I don't want to call it navel gazing, but it's a little bit of that.
Yeah. And almost like at a comfort level or a plateau. So I think what I noticed about the 2 of you, yes, you're 2 human beings. You've come together to be married, to do life together, to have babies together, to raise kids together. And number one, that's remarkable. But both of you seem to have as a core, at least, this inevitable growth that needs to happen. And actually, that's what I believe in my heart of hearts, like that you are doing life, and your partner, your spouse, whatever issues they have, whatever issues you have, they are mirrors to you. In other words, there's probably some things about you, Shelley, that you could not have known about yourself if you weren't married to Chad. He's your mirror, and vice versa, Chad, with you. So it's kind of like you 2 are meant to be together. So when you are in the midst of conflict, when you experience that conflict, of course, we know that that's more than that present moment. It's like a call to know oneself and to grow, and for that space in between to be that, what am I saying? That space to be this invitation. I call it in my book, divine invitations to your authentic self, to get beyond beyond messy relations, divine invitations. So I think it's beautiful to have you 2 here, because here you are studying the Enneagram at this season. And anyway, I just had to insert that. And we're supposed to grow and grow up. So many people, I do a lot of couples counseling. And so, they're not, my spouse isn't what they used to be. Well, they're not supposed to be.
Right. That's the goal.
You're not supposed to live your former, life. You are supposed to grow up. Every living thing grows and grows up. It's meant to, right?
Yeah. Well, I love the reminder that you just pointed out, Shelley, about a lot of people will naturally resist typologies. Before the thing that you're going to so often hear is, I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to be put in a box. And the point of the Enneagram is, it is ideally to do the opposite. It's to help you unpack who you are psychologically, emotionally, and you could say spiritually.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends on how people want to define it or resist, spirituality as well. So yeah, it is a system to be able to, a lot of people naturally go, well, I want to be a 3 or I want to be a 7, when they're taking these tests, because I want to be optimistic and I want to be positive and enthusiastic and love everything or achieving. And, every single type equally has their issues, their fixations, their passions, and their growth work. I guess too, it's fortunate to have a partner who, when we're talking about growth, who wants to grow, and you can't control that, So I'm really glad, Shelley, that you have pushed me to grow.
Yeah. So
and that you've been so dedicated to that.
That's the thing, Judy, like you made me think of with your question. It really is a mirror. And I'm growing because of Chad, and one of the things I'll mention with our Enneagram work as a couple, so I'm a 2 and he's a 4, and we share what they call an arrow line. And so there's inner lines of the Enneagram. And so the 4 and the 2 are intimately connected. And so learning that, I'm like, well, duh, like there was this real unconscious pull to each other. When we first met, we were just talking about this, and I know you had Harvell Hendricks on.
Yes.
Early on
we read
in
about
our
him
relationship,
pre-marriage.
I
had to read that.
His book on the
That's
motto.
how I felt about it.
And like I think there is this kind of unconscious connection, literally the connecting point on the Enneagram that pulls us together. But it also pulls us together in our shadow work, and this work not even now is completely conscious to us. How even this morning, I will say this, I'm feeling super critical and judgy. I had a Facebook Live I did last night in a group, and I got off and I'm like, and I was just so critical of myself, just like could have done that, should have, that sucked, da 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 da. And this morning I was just delivering it to him on a silver platter, all kinds of criticism, and just like, I was snarky and and he took Lennon to school, took our daughter to school. And I was like, what's going on with me? And it really is my shadow stuff that I didn't really want to deal with. And I went to bed as soon as last night. So it's all still there bubbling, and it's coming out with him. And thank God I have a partner who can say, I'm gonna cry.
Well, go ahead.
I want to hold this.
I'm not going to rescue.
Okay. So thank God I have a partner who has grace and compassion and who has language to say, you know what? Okay. Thank you for saying that. He's growing too. We can have this much better, richer, more productive conversation instead of just reacting.
Right.
So
yeah, it does really help with reactivity, as we call it. Whereas those just natural impulses to, those almost gut emotional instincts to just react. And so like when she was, what I felt like she was really in her one wing, I guess we could say, where she was just naming all these pet peeves and all these little things. And at first I was trying to make light of it, but then, she kind of kept going and it started to not feel very good. Now, as a 4, us 4s are famous for introjecting, because we're unconsciously these empaths that just absorb the feelings of those around us, whether they're good or bad. And so now that I'm aware that I do that, instead of introjecting that criticism and feeling it and letting it, internalizing it, letting me kind of feel bad. But I know now to be conscious of it, at least, even if it's kind of still happening.
And still doesn't feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's part of the language and awareness that we're able to have around something, even as recent as just an hour ago.
Oh, let me just hold this. I really want our listeners, I want you to, I want all of us to really realize what just happened here. This was, to me, a remarkable, sacred moment, because Shelley, for you, and well, both of you, to share so vulnerably here on the screen, on this interview, what a gift that is. And I wanted to slow this down a little bit, because it's a remarkable gift. I want people to know that this is possible, to be vulnerable and real. And I want to go to something too. I wanted to really have a heightened awareness of the two of you, and listening to the podcast where you both were in the hot seat. Oh, yeah. You were in the hot seat together on your podcast, Big Self School, or is it Big Self is the name of the podcast? But anyway, I watched that, or listened to it. And I thought, man, like, what married couple would do such a thing? what in the world? Like, Shelley, you are like right there, and you're in the hot seat, and Chad, you're exposing your stuff, the shadow, the good, bad, and ugly about yourself. And Chad, you're doing the same thing. Not only are you doing that, I mean, it's one thing to do it for a therapist. It's one thing to do it for someone else, but you two are actually hosting those moments for each other. And I thought, wow, that is so remarkable. I guess I just want to just really honor that. It's huge.
Yeah. And it's, like every couple, we're busy and go through life and shuffle kids around and cooking dinner, and, but I think on a good day, we do that for each other without the microphones. So
obviously you
thank God I have a partner who's like, what's going on with you? Like, you're really in your one wing right now, and I'm feeling it. And it's like to have the foundation of the curiosity that I think we both have, with the system of the Enneagram, and just with like a deep love, obviously, because he's my best friend and I'm his. It's a lot of growth, even in challenges, but I think that's the good stuff. And it's not perfect. Oh,
and we haven't even talked about like the, working with each other thing as well. And that does add a layer to things. I tell you, through the pandemic, we have really been, like together a lot. We're looking forward to getting our own office space. In a couple of weeks, we're moving into getting some offices. So that's going to feel nice after a couple of years of this. And sometimes I think the very reason, unconsciously you were feeling a little irritable this morning was there is so much togetherness.
Oh, absolutely. There is. That's a huge, I'm going to have you two on again, because I know there's a whole lot that I do want to explore about your raising kids and all of that. There's so much that you have to offer, but you, this has been so enlightening and beautiful and encouraging to me to have you, but I'm not going to let you,
Judy.
I'm not going to let you go yet. I have a couple of other questions. If you could just, let me just what if you could give some advice to a couple that an entrepreneurial couple, and they're going through their own struggles, and maybe they're not even aware of the Enneagram, or maybe they are. What piece of advice, what's one thing that you would share with a couple?
That's a good question.
I think I would say learn the Enneagram.
Learn the Enneagram. Okay, that's good.
So my lesson that I leave with people a lot, and this would be more to unpack than we have time for, but is start with self. The idea that, and this is a really hard lesson for me, but when I'm feeling triggered or reactive or irritable or whatever, it's an invitation to slow down and check in with myself before I then go outside of myself. And it's really, really hard to do for me if I'm not practicing mindfulness, if I'm not finding solitude, if don't have margin in my day and my week. So that would be my big thing, is start with self.
Well, that is absolutely the thing to take away. That is, I can't do any better than that. But in terms of working together, I would say maybe another thing is define your roles. Like sometimes I think that, so yes, it begins with self-awareness, but sometimes, one person might be carrying more than the other, and you got to be able to communicate that and delegate so that it feels like an equal distribution of effort.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. How can folks get in touch with you if they would like some coaching about the Enneagram or even coaching about writing? How would they get in touch with you too?
Yeah, the best way to find us is our website, bigselfschool.com. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things at Big Self School. So we would love to hear from people. And if we can help with Enneagram, we're actually doing a couples retreat, an Enneagram couples retreat. It's not until the fall. So people could join our wait list and in our newsletter and be able to get information when that comes out.
Awesome. That'll be the fall of 2022, right? Because
that's right.
This can be listened to anytime. Yeah. What about you, Chad?
Right.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Do you have a website too for folks to get in touch with you in case?
Just bigselfschool.com. That's where to find us. And in terms of the podcast, we're talking with some leaders, just business leaders at the top of our quarter. Then Shelley and I are hitting on the Enneagram in one way or another for the remainder of the year, and all kinds of different ways to engage with it, especially for professionals, but also for couples.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad you two are really making a tremendous impact in our community and in the world. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much. I really want to have you on again, maybe talk about parenting and some other things. But it has been, y'all have been awesome guests. And
thank you, Judy.
Well, it's our honor. Thanks so much, Judy.
And I want to say likewise, thank you for the movement that you're doing in this community with your work. You're bringing a different dynamic conversation to couples, and thank you. Thank you for your gifts that are coming out and for having us here to talk about us.
Yes. Well, hey, my pleasure. All right. Talk with you later. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, Judy.
Bye. Wow. That was a remarkable time with Doctors Chad and Shelly Prevost. I was so touched by their journey as a married couple willing to do that deep work together. I appreciate Shelley mentioning that the Enneagram is not a place to land once you know your number. Rather, it's a growth journey. Which brings me to next week's guest. Dr. Stan Tatkin brings us 2 episodes worth of marital wisdom. It's not easy, but they're simple ideas. Stay tuned for our next show, Part 1, Simple Ideas That Will Save Your Marriage and Your Life. Don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and comment in the streaming platform of your choice. See you next time.